If you were at training camp practice on Wednesday and thought you were at Royal Rumble, you're probably right. What a day at Seahawks training camp. A bunch of fights, a bunch of brawls. We're going to be breaking it all down here on our Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined, as always, by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang. And a special thanks to all the 12s who are listening in, whether you're up in Kodiak, Alaska, or across the country in Washington, D.C. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. The pads were back on today, but the Seahawks might as well have been wearing wrestling outfits with the way today's practice went down. We're going to be talking about maybe the most intense training camp practice at the VMAC in 5-6 years minimum. We'll be diving into that, everything we saw that was actually football related on the practice field today, and we'll be continuing our one-on-one interview series with new receiver Laviska Shenault, who had a pretty big day today, catching passes, including a touchdown that we'll break down later in the show. This episode brought your way by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Now for your lead story here on our Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. The Seahawks were back in pads for their 13th training camp practice, but they might as well had a couple of rings on the field today and just let guys spar, because that's ultimately what ended up happening. Rob, you and I were both in attendance to watch this practice, and Mike Macdonald on a couple different occasions had to stop practice, one of them to get the entire team together and just kind of cool everything down. Let's have cooler heads prevailing. And then another time to kick two players out, 5 fights total on the field. And these were not like your little like patty cake fights that you sometimes see at training camp. Like, these were all out brawls, including DK Metcalf throwing a helmet at a teammate. He and Trey Brown getting into it. That was probably the one fight today that I would say that's crossing the line. And that was when Mike Macdonald called everybody up and had a team meeting in the middle of practice. But it's clearly evident that this Seahawks team, the physicality we've seen, the intensity, Mike Macdonald seems like he's okay with it, because these fights a lot of times are precursors for the competitiveness and the spirit that you're looking for, as long as you are protecting your teammates, which that's where a few of these maybe started to blur the line a little bit.
They did start to blur the line a little bit, Corbin, but I think that it's something that Pete Carroll talked about early in his tenure with the Seahawks, is that he wanted players who were right on the edge of almost playing at a maniacal kind of a level. And we haven't seen that type of intensity, physicality, just confrontational kind of an attitude from the Seahawks in the past several years. And so, I know that this is not politically correct to say it, but damn it, I guess I'm not going to be politically correct today. I was encouraged by the nastiness of the Seahawks play. To me, this is something that has been lacking for the last several years. I think that we've talked about it. There's a lot of folks out there that their number one concern for the Seahawks is along the offensive line, or it's about the adjusting to Ryan Grubb's offense and all that. To me, the number one concern of the Seahawks as an entire franchise continues to be slowing down opposing running games, and that is all about attitude. And the Seahawks showed a great deal of that attitude today. You mentioned, DK Metcalf throwing the helmet. I actually wound up hitting Kayvon Wallace, who was basically just kind of a bystander in the whole situation, because the skirmish, as you mentioned, was with Trey Brown. Trey Brown and Jake Bobo got into, including supposedly a punch thrown by Trey Brown at Jake Bobo. So that is definitely something that I think that bears watching. Trey Brown being involved in 2 of these things. And had Trey Brown had a terrible practice after that, again, I think it would be a concern, but that was not the case. In fact, I think that he had one of the better defensive plays I saw all practice long, with an interception while covering DK Metcalf. So that was, again, a very impressive play. D. Eskridge and Carlton Johnson getting into it. Christian Haynes and Derek Hall getting into it. Tyrell Dodson and Farrell Brown getting into it. I mean, it was players at different positions. It was long tenured Seahawks. It was new players. It was, again, veterans and undrafted free agent rookies trying to create a splash for themselves. It was just a different level of nastiness on the field. And considering that this, of course, again, is game week with the Los Angeles Chargers on Saturday at 4 p.m., I think that, again, this is something that Mike Macdonald is going to poo-poo publicly, but I think that there's also something that he appreciates about the fire that is clearly lit with this Seahawks squad.
Yeah, he has seemed for the most part like he's been okay with. I mean, there's no supposedly with this. Trey Brown punched Jake Bobo. He got him right in the schnoz. And Jake Bobo had to go over with the trainers for a couple minutes. But what I think Mike Macdonald probably loves about this entire situation is what he saw from players coming back from these incidents. Jake Bobo came back and had a 75-yard touchdown catch when Trey Brown had busted coverage. So that was kind of some revenge there for that punch. I'm going to get this long touchdown with you messing up your coverage. And Bobo scored a second touchdown coming out of the backfield into the flats. I was really excited to see that. So Jake Bobo ended up having a big day after that fact, but Bobo came running in when Metcalf and Trey Brown were getting after each other. So he was not forgetting about that earlier incident. And you saw guys running in there, and Mike Macdonald at that point's like, okay, hey, a couple plays earlier, we just had Farrell Brown and Tyrell Dodson getting into it, a skirmish in the end zone. That one luckily didn't escalate, but the Metcalf one did. And it actually looked like, and Rob, I think you might have had a good view of this as well, it looked like Metcalf was actually restraining himself pretty well. And then Trey Brown, I don't know what he said, but he set DK Metcalf off, and that's where that helmet went flying and then ended up hitting Kayvon Wallace. So it's one of those things where one person does one thing, another one does another thing. The second retaliation, things escalate. So we got to see that a couple times. The only one that didn't happen in the team scrimmage period was Christian Haynes going up against Derek Hall. And that one was kind of weird because Derek Hall lost that rep to Christian Haynes, got washed downfield. And I don't think he liked how long Christian Haynes held onto the block after the whistle had finished. And that's how Christian Haynes plays. He is a to the whistle, sometimes beyond the whistle kind of guy. And Derek Hall pushed him from behind. Next thing you know, they're on the ground. And Mike Macdonald's running over from the 7-on-7 drill to kick them both out of practice. Go to the shower early, boys. That's what we saw there. So I'm sure there were some things that Macdonald, when he looks back, is going to say, okay, we probably went a little too far there. But at the same time, as you said, I don't think this is politically incorrect to say this is football. It's a violent sport. And these guys have been hitting each other for 3 weeks. Jonathan Hankins was talking about that today. Hey, guys are starting to get beat up. We've been hitting on the same guys for 3 weeks. You start to have some, this is normal in training camp. You start to have some different feelings towards your teammates because you've been going against these guys for weeks, and now you're just wanting to hit somebody else. And so these things are going to happen. It's not a huge deal. I do wonder about the helmet thing, but at the same time, look, these guys are NFL football players. There's going to be animosity on the field, and I think Mike Macdonald would rather have this chippiness and this boulder on everybody's shoulders, us against the world type mentality on the field, and the physicality that we are seeing. It was transitioning into the way these guys were playing on both sides of the football. I thought it was a really physical practice at the line of scrimmage with the running backs. We saw Patrick O'Connell pop Kenny McIntosh, Marquise Blair. It was not a legal play, but he ended up smashing Laviska Shenault on a play. There was a lot of big hitting out there for a training camp practice in today's NFL. And I think overall, Mike Macdonald's probably grinning ear to ear about what he saw out there today.
I think he is, because it wasn't just the slugfest that we're describing. There was some really crisp, quality football being played.
Yep.
We saw some spectacular throws. We'll get into this a little bit more later, but we saw some spectacular throws. We saw some terrific adjustments to the football by both receivers as well as defensive backs. And then, let's just talk about the elephant in the room for a moment, because there's an awful lot of Seahawks fans out there, Corbin, who are very much down on DK Metcalf because of flagrant penalties that he has had. It's been a bugaboo for him. I mean, he's led the NFL among wide receivers in penalties each of the past 2 seasons. But this past year, after I believe it was week 5, when he and Pete Carroll were asked some questions about it, he didn't have another penalty the whole rest of the season. And it was not lost on me that after Mike Macdonald got all of his players surrounding him and had a conversation with them, DK Metcalf was the one player that I did see actually talk to the rest of his teammates. So whether that was Mike Macdonald basically calling DK Metcalf out and saying, you're going to have to, atone for your actions here and speak to your teammates, or if that is just a young leader stepping up and just recognizing that, hey, my emotions got the better of me, still, that is leadership at this point in camp. And as you said, again, this is relatively rare in Seattle. It is not rare in other NFL training camps. As we've talked about before, I've been to 5 different NFL training camps over the last couple of weeks. And Corbin, I saw a fight every bit as physical as this one in every single one of them. So again, this is just the way the football is played. And so if you don't like physicality, then I guess the Seattle Seahawks is not the club for you.
Hell, when I was in high school, we were fighting on the field. This is just how things go. And you obviously want to de-escalate these situations. And I thought the coaching staff did a really good job of that. Mike Macdonald, hey, first-time head coach, these are the kind of things you get to deal with. And I think that he is handling this stuff really well. He stepped in when he needed to, but at the same time, hey, there's nothing wrong with some chippiness. There's nothing wrong with some physicality. We just have not seen enough of that from the Seahawks in the last several years. I think that's a big reason that run defense has been so porous the last couple of years, just not having that physicality. Obviously, the fighting stuff you don't want happening in games, but the physicality, the competitiveness, those are things that Mike Macdonald is going to be excited about. We're going to continue diving into day 13 of Seahawks camp. We're going to move away from all the post-whistle extracurriculars and get to some of the football. As you said, Rob, there was some really good football that was being played between the lines today when they weren't fighting and brawling on the field. We'll get to more of that information coming out of the VMAC up next here on our Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This episode is brought your way by Game Time. You shouldn't have to think about skipping a mortgage payment when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, viewed from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Back in early May, my wife and I scored awesome lower bowl seats to see Judas Priest in St. Louis, Rob Halford and company, $75 a ticket. And we got to see an iconic band up close and personal without breaking the bank. If you thought I was going to pass up on a deal like that, you've got another thing coming. Game Time has deals on tickets right at the day of the event, and the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price to write your own memories. If you find tickets in the same section in a row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to the Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. Glad to be joined as always by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang, and a special thanks to each and every one of the 12s out there. Thank you as always for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. The Seahawks hosting their 13th practice. I can't believe we're already that deep into training camp on Wednesday afternoon. The pad's out. Obviously, a lot of extracurriculars that Mike Macdonald and his coaching staff had to try to weather a storm to weather on the field. But when this team was not fighting and they weren't having scuffles, skirmishes on the field today, there was a lot of really good football being played on both sides. And you and I were talking about this before the show. Look, we've been hard on Sam Howell, and we should be, because the performance has not been as good as we expected to see from him. in his first training camp, particularly with the accuracy. But maybe it was you being at camp today. I thought this was the crispest day that Sam Howell had, and he looked pretty solid yesterday. His receivers were letting him down, particularly D. Eskridge with 2 blatant drops that could have been touchdowns. Today, his receivers were stepping up, and most notably, Brady Russell, maybe a tight end that we need to start paying some attention to, because it seems like every practice he's making some things happen. Oh, by the way, he got some reps of the first team offense today as well. Noah Fant's been a little bit banged up the last couple of days, but Brady Russell had a 30-yard touchdown catch, and Laviska Shenault also reeling in a 35-yard touchdown from Sam Howell that he dropped right in the bucket, hit him right in stride after he had beat rookie Nehemiah Pritchett. So I thought this was Sam Howell's best day by a pretty wide margin throwing the football.
Yeah, the touchdown pass of Laviska Shenault, I thought was the best throw of the day by any of the quarterbacks. And Geno Smith continues to be head and shoulders above both Sam Howell and PJ Walker in both of our opinions. But, Sam Howell, the way that he feathered that ball up there, as you said, it was a terrific route by Shenault. It was good coverage, actually, by Pritchett. It was just a perfect throw. It was almost not to the point of the throw that Jake Bobo had the sky for and just Superman leap and grab. But when he threw that ball, I thought there's no way Chenault's going to be able to make that catch. But so he really did have to get on his giddy up and go track it down. But it was perfectly thrown. It was the very first throw of the number 2s going up against the defense after Geno Smith and the starting offense struggled in one of the final team sessions. So to see Geno and the starting offense kind of struggle, had 6, 7, 8 downs, and were unable to get into the end zone, at least in one splash chunk play. And then Sam Howell, the number 2s, go out there and in one play create a touchdown. That was a 40, 50-yard bomb. I think the ball was snapped at the 35-yard line. And of course, Sam Howell was 5, 10 yards back from that. It was, again, just a heck of a throw. And then I love the fact that you mentioned Brady Russell. I agree with you. I think that Brady Russell is somebody that we need to be talking about a lot more. Brady Russell does so many things well. He caught the ball exceptionally well today. I thought that he had one of the best receptions. It wasn't for a touchdown, but it was a throw over the middle in which the ball was way outside of his grasp, and he reached out and just plucked the very, very end of the football, snared it, and kept running. It was a heck of a reception. I watched his blocking, as you said. He was playing with the 1s. He was definitely playing a lot with the 2s. He is Seattle's number 2 long snapper. He is a core 4 special teamer. He's on every special teams unit. Corbin, I think you can make an argument that he's becoming a lock to make this team, not just a guy who might be on the 53, but we've talked so much about, say, Westover and the role that he played in Ryan Grubb's offense for the Huskies a year ago. Maybe it's Brady Russell who is actually going to be playing that kind of Westover type of a role as a guy that can do anything and be counted on. He definitely had a strong performance in practice today. And one final note for me that I wanted to make sure I talk about, George Fant at right tackle. We've talked about him with Abraham Lucas continuing to recover from the injury. George Fant is getting these veteran days off. He got another Veterans Day off. It's going to be interesting to see if Fant plays against the Chargers on Saturday. It was McClendon Curtis, whose name I screwed up yesterday, and so I need to apologize to him and our listeners publicly here, because McClendon Curtis is the truth. He basically was starting at the right tackle position all practice long today and looked terrific in doing so. Some of the best runs and pass protection were coming off of that right side. So really impressed by a guy who, again, he's 6'6", he's 320 pounds, he's got 35-inch arms. Corbin, if he played anywhere other than UT Chattanooga in college, then he would have been drafted, and rather than being an undrafted free agent, I believe it's a late round selection. He was
undrafted. No, he didn't get picked.
Yeah, which is crazy to me, just considering the tools that he possesses and the fact that his former teammate, Cole Strange, who also played at UT Chattanooga, also was at the Senior Bowl, wound up going in the first round, the New England Patriots. To me, again, this is surprising. McClendon Curtis is this talented and completely fell out of the draft a couple of years ago. I think the Seahawks have themselves a steal. He's another player that I think, again, is not a on the bubble kind of a guy. I think McClendon Curtis at this point is a lock and could be in the starting lineup.
I think he's a lock too. I would have said that a week ago. He has been fantastic the entire training camp. There isn't another guy on this roster that can play both guard and both tackle spots. And he has shown in this training camp that he can move over the line. It doesn't matter. He has it. He's got that innate ability to just play wherever you want him. He could learn to play center. I am convinced. He'd be really tall to play that spot, but he is that versatile. And Scott Huff loves this guy. You may have noticed today the way that he was raving about him on the field. I mean, he just loves him. So McClennon Curtis is on this football team. At this point, I would be absolutely stunned if he is not on this team. And like you said, there might be an outside chance that this guy can start for him at some point. He has looked that good during training camp and really off-season workouts as well. We're surprised by the production of Brady Russell, and, McClennon Curtis still maybe is qualifying as a surprise. But one thing we are not surprised by, Devin Witherspoon, who just continues to have a phenomenal training camp. And he put on a clinic on how you defend a bigger receiver going against DK Metcalf in 7-on-7 today without getting penalized, without interfering, using his body like a basketball player, which Devin Witherspoon was a really good basketball player. He understands the box out game when he's going against a player of that size. And really, he created a human shield to prevent Metcalf from being able to actively play the football without really interfering with him. It's a technique standpoint. Football's right there, picks it off in the end zone, and runs around to make sure that the offense knows he has the interception, which is what makes him so much fun. He also had a huge hit in the backfield for a tackle for a loss coming on a blitz. Devin Witherspoon, you mentioned being the truth. Devin Witherspoon absolutely is the truth right now for the Seahawks defense. And seeing him and Trey Brown with the pick Trey Brown had today after getting burned by Jake Bobo, coming back and getting a deflection and then intercepting the deflection in front of DK Metcalf, you are just seeing the star power and the talent that Seattle's got in that secondary room. It is the best defensive backfield they have had since 2014.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. And let's just kind of continue to lavish some praise on the defensive backfield. We talked about the Fresno State undrafted free agent Carlton Johnson yesterday, Corbin. He had those 5 pass breakups, and defensive coordinator Adam Durde said, hey, that's great. Let's see if he's able to kind of stack consecutive good days. Well, he did so. Had a breakup that I saw during during one-on-ones with the wide receivers. And then he also had a real solid tackle that basically ended one of the team sessions. And again, that was one of the biggest questions I had about a guy who was listed at 175 to 180 pounds, depending on what you're looking at, and looks it. He is a very slim guy, but you do see some physicality in him, so that was encouraging. And finally, one other note that I thought was interesting. Coby Bryant, to me, has been a kind of a mystery man, so I kept my eyes on number 8 for a bit, and the fact that he was running number 2 at free safety, I thought was interesting. He saw an awful lot of action in today's practice. So for those out there suggesting maybe Coby Bryant might be on the outside looking in, I don't know. I was impressed by what he was able to do. And again, running 2s at free safety is a strong sign that the Seahawks are still very high on Coby Bryant's future with the club.
And my last takeaway from today, I've got to finish with running backs. It's my nature, but I think it is the most compelling competition on offense right now. It's not right guard, which Anthony Bradford looks to have on lockdown right now. You've got Connor Williams coming in. I expect Connor Williams is going to be the starting center in week 1 from everything that I'm hearing about where he's at health-wise. You didn't sign him for $6 million to sit on the bench. He's going to be your starter. So to me, third down back is the most compelling. And let's add another entrant to the race. Kenny McIntosh and George Holani both had rushing touchdowns today. I thought Holani's was the more impressive of the two because you saw him really show off his burst, bouncing or inside run outside, and he just outran a couple defenders to the pylon. But McIntosh had an impressive touchdown run as well. But let's give the nod today to Kobe Lewis, the other undrafted rookie out of Florida Atlantic. 59-yard rushing touchdown today, maybe the longest rushing touchdown there's been in training camp to this point. He showed he's got some versatility, had a couple really nice pass protection reps as well. I think he's still got a significant gap to make up to get with Holani and McIntosh, but it looks to me like Seattle's got 3 very capable reserve backs there. And I think you even mentioned another guy that he makes Deuce Vaughn look tall, but Tyrod Robinson who they list at 5'7". There ain't no way that if he's 5'7", I'm 7 foot tall. But he has some toughness and has shown some things in the first couple practices. He's been there. So I think the Seahawks like the running back room that they have right now.
I 100% guarantee that they do. I definitely like their running back room. I think if there is a lot of guys, I think you have a superstar in Ken Walker. I think you have a very solid back in Zach Charbonnet. Then I think you have 4 other backs who are legitimate NFL backs that if they don't make this roster or Seattle's practice squad, then they're going to wind up getting plenty of interest from other teams out there as well.
When we come back, we've mentioned Laviska Shenault a few times on this show, had a 35-yard touchdown today from Sam Howell. I had a chance to catch up with Seattle's newest receiver at the VMAC in our latest training camp interview. We'll get to that coming up next here on our Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This episode is brought your way by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. As a site manager, LinkedIn Jobs is my go-to to post writing positions to land top candidates. They make the process easy and seamless. And LinkedIn isn't just another job board. It's a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is so easy when you can get quality candidates. So easy. In fact, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, it's quick, it's easy. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to the Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. Glad to be joined, as always, by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang. And a special thanks to each and every one of the 12s that are listening in. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. The Seahawks have one of the best receiving rooms in the NFL, and they potentially made this group even better in free agency by adding former second-round pick Laviska Shenault, formerly playing at the University of Colorado, spent 2 years in Jacksonville, had some injuries the last 2 years in Carolina, but he has been looking pretty darn good on the practice field for the Seahawks. And maybe, just maybe, he can be the player that D. Eskridge was supposed to be, who can get those quick screens, can create after the catch, break tackles, and also has the ability to win downfield, as he showed today with a 35-yard touchdown from Sam Howell. This is a player, Rob, I know you've been very high on for a long time. Things didn't necessarily work out for him with his first 2 teams, but as a complementary weapon and a really good special teams player as well, he's got a chance to be one of the more impactful free agent additions the Seahawks made this offseason.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And as you said, I mean, the hope is that he can play a similar role as to what the Seahawks were imagining with D. Eskridge. But, the 2 players couldn't be more different in terms of size. I mean, D. Eskridge is 5'10", 190 pounds. And, Laviska Shenault is all of 6'1", 210, maybe 220. He's still only 25 years old, despite, as you mentioned, him playing in the league for 4 years. So you think about the clubs that he has been with, in the NFL and then the University of Colorado as well. Not a lot of talent around him. So the fact that he is, as you said, going to be a complementary threat for the Seahawks, that's why I think that this is his best chance for real success in the NFL. I'm excited to see what Laviska Shenault can bring Seattle.
I had a chance to chat with Laviska at training camp recently. Here's our latest one-on-one, diving into everything from the new kickoff rules to developing chemistry with Geno Smith and Sam Howell. Take a listen.
What's your first training camp been like so far out here, and how's this compared to your first 2 places? This is going to be a much different environment than Jacksonville.
Yeah. It's a completely different vibe, but I like it. It's not hot. I've been hot everywhere except Colorado. That was a good vibe. But the fans out here, the energy is different. I love it. The weather is nothing that compared to it.
Nobody's told you about the fall yet, right?
I know about it, but I want to experience myself because a lot of people have their perspective and they're not even here. So I want to experience myself. We'll see.
Before we get to the offense, you got your first game set up with the new kick return rules on Saturday.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that compared to you've been in the league mostly when the kick return has been kind of taken out of the touchback and stuff.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on this early kickoff, and is there anything with it that you would like to see maybe in time that could maybe be modified?
I don't know about any modifications yet, but my thought on it, I'm just trying to see how can I use it to my advantage, and our team advantage. Not too many thoughts about it. I'm just ready to see how it goes, and we're gonna see.
Tyler Lockett mentioned this the other day, and being a former running back coach myself, I look at this play now with the blockers being way down the field when they start. Like, how much more like a run play is that kick return now, and how does that benefit somebody like you who's carried the ball 50 times in the NFL? You've played in the out of the backfield.
It definitely got some of that comparisons to it, because of how they're blocking it. You know, they really just they're fitting their guy and they're in what they call it two gapping. Yeah. So that's really running back stuff. You set up one side, you go the other side. It's just how it goes. So
you're seeing the run fit stuff.
Yeah, I'm seeing run fit stuff. Right. I mean, you still see the kick return, like a regular kick return, but like you're seeing it more now because it's like you can't get too out of position. Anyways, yeah. So it's a lot of comparison to running back, and like you said, I've been doing that for a while, and I like to have the ball in my hand. So it's a lot of advantages for sure.
How do you feel so far with this offense? Brian Grubb at Washington was known for moving dudes around, and you obviously played all over the place. So how do you feel about your fit at this point before you guys are out of the installation?
I'm excited. You don't do too much in fall camp, but they're definitely excited to have me here, and I'm excited to be here. And Grubb, like you said, he's great at what he do. So I can't wait to see how he put it together when the real bullets start flying.
How's the building relationship with the quarterbacks gone to this
Great.
You haven't played with either one of these guys.
Great. You don't get to see them. I mean, you see them quite a bunch, but you're hanging out with your receiver core or whatever group you're with. But it's good vibes. Over the summer, worked with them guys, so they all fun vibes. I like them.
How much does it benefit you as an offensive player when you're trying to learn a new playbook? And you're going against a defense that's doing the same thing, and you know all the tricks that Mike Macdonald pulling out of his hat, how that could really get you guys prepared for the regular season.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Yeah, he's coming from the Ravens, and I've played against the Ravens at least 2 out of my 4 years being in the league, and, yeah, they don't play over there. The way they disguise things, the way that the defense just play hard-nosed, everyone to the ball. So, yeah, it definitely prepares us very well.
How does that impact you as a receiver when it comes to pre-snap, regardless of where you line up, when you know you're playing against a defense that is notorious for showing one thing and then doing another thing? How your communication how does that change the way that you handle things in that opening up the snap, which is so critical?
I think mainly the quarterback. You know what I'm saying? I think that's more for a quarterback. For us receivers, we in control of what we want to do. We don't want to react to them. We have them react to us. So I mean, of course, still you want to know what they're doing and how they're about to do it. That helps as well. But as a receiver, you want to have them react to us.
I guess maybe the better, now that thinking about it, probably the better thing would be how you're reading coverages and like when you're in the actual route, when you get to your stem and things like that.
Yeah, it all varies. You know what I'm saying? Like you can change up the route in the middle of a play because of how they're covering it and how they're guarding it. So knowing what's going on that other end, it could be big for you.
So that could be something that's quarterback chemistry receivers.
Yeah.
Crucial, but when you're going against a defense like that, and you have to make those on things.
And it's even better when you and the quarterback's on the same page. So
I would think so. If you look at this season, when you look at this season from an individual standpoint, what goals do you have, and what are your expectations for what this offense can do?
I would say my goals is personal goals. I guess would be just to any opportunity that I get to make the most of it and let these Seahawks fans and the world know what type of person I am. And that it ain't going nowhere, and they haven't left nowhere. The expectations for this team is to do it big. I mean, that's the only way to go by it. We have the team, we have the players, we got the coaches. We just got to go out and put it on.
I really enjoyed the opportunity to chat with Laviska, and you want to talk about a guy that always has a smile on his face. He's clearly enjoying being in the NFL and obviously being with the Seahawks and this new offense. As always, you can follow me on X and Threads at Corbin Smith NFL. You can follow Rob at Rob Rang. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. Coming up tomorrow, going to be diving into another practice number 14 for the Seahawks. They draw closer to their preseason opener against the Chargers on Saturday. And we'll be chatting with rookie D. Williams, who has come on a little bit here as of late for the Seahawks as he tries to vie for a spot in the 53-man roster. Make sure you're listening in and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Go Hawks.